Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, held on Monday, February 10th, 2020. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. Can I invite all in the chamber to rise for the playing of O Canada? Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are also advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. Thank you. Councillors, while we don't have a formal procedure for this, I do wish to acknowledge the passing of Shirley Judge, wife of long-serving elected official and first mayor of Amalgamated North Perth, Vince Judge. This council and community extends its condolences to the Judge family. This community succeeds and flourishes when its people make their contributions. Those making important contributions include councillors at this table who will listen to and deliberate on the matters on our proposed agenda. This council has been well supported by dedicated members of the staff of North Perth who provide service and reports to this council and to our community, and those who have business with or interest in the work of this council. I appreciate all of you being here and your service. I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I advise that I do have attendance regrets from Deputy Mayor Kellum and Councillor Seiler. Since our work requires concentration, procedures issued by Council requires all but councillors and specific media to turn off electronic communication devices at this time, and even then to respect focused use for our meeting. Use of cameras or audio devices during or to record this meeting is not permitted. Let us move then to item 2.1 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol, at this time I invite all councillors with pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. Councillor Behrens.
I would declare a conflict on 5.4.1 and 13.1 as I have grandchildren that attend the North Perth Binwright Child and Family Centre.
Thank you, Councillor Behrens. Any other councillors wishing to declare a pecuniary interest this evening? Thank you. Well, let's move forward then. Regarding item 2.2 on our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda with amendments. I'm going to reach out to the clerk to describe the changes proposed.
I'd like to remove from the agenda item 5.3.1, which is the partnership agreement for the Atwood Lions Club regarding the outdoor rink, as well as I'd like to remove correspondence 7.1, which is again the request for use of profits on behalf of the Listowel Legion.
So, councillors, we are amending the agenda as proposed by the clerk with your consent. I have a motion, therefore, for the approval of tonight's agenda that reads as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting as amended be approved. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Johnston and Councillor Rothwell as our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, if you would trigger that vote for us, Deputy Clerk. I'm not seeing it. And that is carried. Thank you. That moves us to agenda item 3, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they do require council's approval. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an agenda item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. There are 6 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of last week's regular council meeting. Councillors, do you have any desire to extract any of these items for discussion or action? Councillor Duncan.
I think it's 3.5. Yeah, 3.5.
Okay. You'd like to further discuss that?
Yeah,
one?
I can speak to it now. I just want to remind everyone that Maitland's annual general meeting is being held in Goderich, and it's on February 19th at 2 p.m.
Very good.
Everyone is welcome to attend.
So that's a week Wednesday. Thank you. Any other issues, concerns with the consent agenda items? Seeing none, I have a resolution pertaining to the consent agenda tonight that is for our consideration that reads as follows: that consent items 3.1 to 3.6 be received for information and the minutes of the February 3rd, 2020 regular council meeting be adopted. Could I invite a mover for that? Councillor Anstett, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. This time it's proposed that we move to agenda item 4. This evening we actually have no public meetings or delegations scheduled, which allows us to move on to agenda item 5. We have no reports from the following departments at our meeting tonight: under 5.1, the CAO's department, and under 5.2, the clerk's department, which brings us thus to item 5.3. I'll call on Interim Manager of Recreation Amy Gangle to present propositions to release a tender for the partial removal of the dam in Listowel Memorial Park and associated permission and grant seeking as item 5.3.1. Welcome, Ms. Gangle.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I'm bringing this forward to you because there's a recent grant opportunity that has come across our desk for consideration. The 2009 Greenway Master Plan recommended improvements to the Listowel Memorial Park. This included the removal of the dam in Listowel Memorial Park. The Memorial Park Rehabilitation Committee was created to oversee the project as well as other park improvement projects. In 2013, the stop logs of the Memorial Park Dam were removed to the drain, the pond, as first phase towards naturalization of the Middle Maitland River in the Listowel area. In 2015, the second phase included naturalization of the channel from the dam downstream, a rocky ramp immediately below the dam, providing improved fishing migration through the center, not to the dam, natural stone banks for the new natural channel upstream of the dam, and an artificial offline wetland. Since 2018, the Memorial Park Rehabilitation Committee has been working on steps to complete the third phase, which includes partial removal of the dam to minimize backwater effect of the dam during normal low flow events, reduce ice captured by the dam, improved sediment transport and fish habitat conditions through the new channel upstream of the dam. With the help from engineered consultants, the Memorial Park Rehabilitation Committee, along with staff, have had several engineer assessments and evaluation reports completed, and these documents do support the partial removal of the dam from Memorial Park. On January 22nd, 2020, a funding opportunity came out that would fit with this project. The Environment and Climate Change Canada's Eco Action Community Funding Program would cover 50% of the cost. Deadline to apply for this fund is March 3rd. Engineer consultants estimate the projects are between $53,000 to $108,000. More accurate costs will be obtained through the tendering process. It will also ensure contractors will be available to complete the project within the designated timeline, so during our low flow season. The tender will not be awarded until funds secured or allocated through the budget process.
Councillors, any questions about this matter of Ms. Gangle? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Through you, Barrett. Thank you so much, Amy. Good report. I've been a member of this committee for quite a number of years, and this has been such a long time in coming. The park has undergone such a drastic change from when we actually pulled the stop logs out that this is the one of the last few things that are left to do to actually remove the dam, seeing consultants and reports and a lot of hard work by the members of the committee. I would fully support and have full intentions of moving this when this comes the time, that I do believe that this is an opportunity that we've got a pretty good, I'm thinking a fairly good chance, but it's actually just a one-time opportunity to actually get 50% funding, which in our budgets that we currently have now, when you can get 50% funding, you jump all over it. So the intent is to go out for tender to get actual dollars and cents for what it's going to cost, and there might be opportunities to allow contractors a little bit what they call in the water time, like, because it is governed by the M&R and Fisheries and Oceans, like when you can actually do work in the water, in the waterways, but just by certain plans that we're going to be hopefully initiating to do that might allow a bit longer time. So we'd like to strike while the iron is hot to get some tenders back and get some actual dollars and cents and hopefully get it awarded. So I would appreciate everyone's support if you do. And if there's any questions that I can answer as a member of the committee, I'd be more than happy to do so to the best of my ability. But failing that, good report, and thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
Any other questions from councillors? All right. Seeing none, I have a resolution that obviously Councillor Richardson is going to move. Proposed to our attention that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the release of a tender for the partial removal of the Listowel Memorial Park Dam project. And further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth submit permit applications for dam removal to the Ministry of Natural Resources, Lakes and Rivers Improvement Act, Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And further, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth partner with the Middle Maitland Rejuvenation Committee on a grant application to Eco Action Community Funding Program. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Behrens. Thank you. Any further discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you. That turns us to item 5.4. I believe for item 5.4.1, we should note the exit from the chamber of Councillor Behrens, who's declared potential pecuniary interest in this matter. Are there any questions about our report on accounts? Seeing none, I have a resolution for our consideration that The following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total is $1,809,125.43. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. For item 5.4.2, council is invited to receive a report from the Finance Department pertaining to the sale of surplus assets in 2019 through the govdeals.com website. Ms. Hale, did you wish to speak to this item?
I just wanted to bring this information to you to see how well the GovDeals site has been working for us, and if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Okay, thank you.
This is for information.
Councillors, do you have any questions for Ms. Hale? All right, I have a resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive for information the 2019 sold asset report for the Municipality of North Perth from govdeals.com. Can I invite a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you, and Councillor Andreessen is our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And for item 5.4.3, council is invited to consider the establishment of procedure for the disposition of unclaimed cash turned over to the OPP from members of the public. Ms. Hale again.
We're very fortunate to have some unclaimed cash for our disposal, and at this time it's typically I might not have batted an eye, but we were informed by the police services that if this wasn't under contract, that they would normally return it to the person that submitted it. And I didn't feel I had that authority to do that. So I'm bringing it to council for consideration. I personally am looking at it in terms of the fact that any property, whether it's jewelry or bicycles or chainsaws, what have you, we've seen quite a few unclaimed pieces of property come through here. We do just put them back to police services, typically to offset the tax base for that particular function. But if you felt in this case it needed to have some other treatment, then I just wanted to bring that for council consideration and put out 3 options. I mean, the options are endless, but at this time it would be my request that council provide us with some direction and possibly choose an option or give us another one.
Okay, thank you. I sure hope there aren't unclaimed chainsaws lying around our community.
We do have had a few.
Isn't that unusual? All right. Councillors, comments or questions for Ms. Hale at this point? She's presented 3 different options. Do these options also apply to real property that has been...
No, this would simply be cash.
Just cash.
In terms of what we do with the other unclaimed, from the police services, is that we just put it back towards that budget.
Okay, very good.
And it varies from year to year, depending on the number of bikes.
Okay, Councillor Richardson, let's start there.
Thank you, through Mayor Kasenberg. Thank you, Fran. I guess this can come in a lot of ways. Obviously, if it's not evidence involved in a police investigation, it would just be someone finds a bag of money or happens to find something. Is that a common occurrence?
No, it is not.
Okay.
But given that it could happen at any time, like it has now, we just want to make a policy and have it in place that we know what is intended for us to do. This could have been part of evidence. It still could have been submitted by the public as opposed to a police officer and then used as evidence for some way, depending on where it was found or those sorts of things. But eventually they have a limitation on when it's no longer needed, and then that's when we would have it in our possession.
So, okay, thank you. So There's probably many ways you could do it, but at the end, we're probably not talking tens of thousands of dollars. I wouldn't think.
But even if it was,
But even if it was, like,
yeah.
so, I always
That's
thought,
why I didn't mention who or how much. I think it should just be a standard. If this is what happens, this is what happens.
Yeah.
If we get unclaimed money again or cash, then this is what council would like us to do with it, regardless of its denomination.
would there be any appetite, sorry if I may supplemental, would there be any appetite for possibly splitting it? Or does that just get too wiggy? I'm just, don't, I've been given the nod, don't do that, don't do that, so.
Typically, I don't believe this is going to be common, so I don't want you to spend a lot of time on it, but just whatever you feel is the right thing to do.
No, I think it would still be going to a good cause with the Community Foundation North Sports for Kids funds. I think that would still be very good if we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that could innately affect our police budget, but I wouldn't think that's the case, and I'm okay with option 3.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston?
Option 3 was going to be my choice because I think we're dealing with, periodically some small amounts of money here. So I would say option 3 gives us the most benefit.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to weigh in on this one at this point? Okay, I have a resolution for our consideration, Council, that reflects what we've heard so far. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to implement option number 3 as the standard operating procedure for dealing with unclaimed cash. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstead, thank you. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have no reports tonight indicated from our Manager of Operations, which brings us to item 5.7. Specifically, item 5.71, we have our annual water reports and water system summary reports for 2019. I'll invite Mark Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services, to address these reports, which all look like good news to me. Mr. Hackett.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. Yeah, each year I bring these very similar looking reports for Council's information. The summary reports are required to be brought each year by March 31st, and they're basically a summary and a bit of more of an overview of each water system, any non-compliances, and there's a look at the flow rates and how much we're pumping each day. And that's for Council's information. And then we have the annual reports, which are much more detailed. They look at all the different sampling results, any non-compliances, and any significant expenses for each of those systems. So I was just going to start and go through each one briefly. I have a few notes about each one, starting with Atwood. For the first time, I've been doing this for 16 years. We had no inspection by the Ministry of Environment and Conservation of Parks this year. I'm not sure why exactly, but so we did not have an inspection, so therefore we have no non-compliances. I guess that's good. I don't think we would have anyway. Looking at the flow, we were using 12% of the capacity. That's covered in the summary reports. Looking at significant expenses in 2019, we replaced the silt pump in Atwood for approximately $2,500. The main sampling that you see in the annual report, the Schedule 23 and 24 sampling, which is basically your organics and inorganics, your metals and pesticides and things like that. In a large system like Atwood, they're required every 3 years. So the last time it was done in 2018. We'll be doing that again in 2021. So that's why those numbers are from 2018. Looking at the Gownstown drinking water system, we did have 2 non-compliances there. They were both off of one event that occurred on January 21st when we had a 24-volt power supply failure, which basically caused the PLC to lock on the data that was there at the time of failure. So the backup system allowed the pump to run like it was supposed to, but the chlorine pumps did not come on. So we had low chlorinated water for a short period of time. We did everything that we were required to do by the ministry. Everything was taken care of. There was no no issues with that. However, it still comes up as a non-compliance. So to combat that, we replaced the 24-volt supply there. We put a redundant one there as a backup, and all of our systems as part of the 2020 capital program are to have redundant power supplies put in there so that it won't have that happen where the data freezes basically and causes issue. We're only using about 11% of the capacity in Gowanstown. The Schedule 23-24 sampling was done in 2018. This is a small system, so it's every 5 years, so it's due in 2023. If you were to look a little deeper into it, you see that we did a fair bit of, we did quarterly arsenic testing. That was one of the ones that's changed recently from 25 to 10. So anytime that you're above half the maximum allowable concentration, which is 10, would be 5 for 10, you have to do increased sampling. So that's for a period of 8 quarters, 2 years. So we're just about finished through that. We got another couple ones to go. So that's Gowanstown. Looking at Listowel, we had no non-compliances. We're using on all 3 pumps combined approximately 21% of the capacity. Significant expenses in 2019. We had the silicate pumps at wells 5 and 6 replaced for $6,500. We had a VFD replacement and repaired a hydro service at well 5 for $11,000, and all the Listowel wells had the flow control valves rebuilt for approximately $4,500. Again, with arsenic testing, well 4 was above the half max, so it's on the quarterly increased sampling. And the Schedule 23 and 24 was completed in 2019, and all the results are in that report before you, and it will be due again in 2022. And finally, the Molesworth system, there were no non-compliances there. We're using approximately 9% of the capacity of that system. Significant expenses incurred were the upgrades to the Molesworth well building itself, just under $35,000. And at that same time, we replaced the pressure tanks there while we had everything apart. And so we put in 4 new pressure tanks at around $11,000. The Schedule 23 and 24 sampling is due this year. So if there were any questions about any of the reports, I'd be happy to delve into them a bit deeper.
Thanks, Mark. Councillors, any questions on these reports? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mark, thanks for the report. Certainly arsenic is one of the issues that raises everyone's awareness. I'm on the Source Water Protection Committee representing this area for the Maitland Source Protection Area, and Dungannon is an area that has a serious issue. It's a naturally occurring matter in their groundwater, and they've had considerable expense to rectify those situations. And I notice Gowanstown, I guess, of the wells is the one that's the sort of the highest of, if you will. But certainly it's, but it changes from time to time, as I understand, just in terms of like when we saw the 2 different samples. So our hope is that if we're above 10, that's when we're in, I don't want to say trouble, but that's when we have significant more work to do. Is that correct?
That's correct. And typically and historically, we've been in the 8 range. So we're hoping it stays there. We don't expect it to go higher than that. Yeah. It is naturally occurring. There's not a lot you can do about it. Closer to home, Perth East is dealing with issues at their Shakespeare well. They're hitting 11s and 12s, and they're in the process of dealing with possible treatment methods that are extremely expensive at this time.
Just one other question, just while I may. So I think on well 4 in Listowel, there's 2 numbers that are in there for the May 15th for arsenic. I just wasn't sure if 5.7 and 5.9, are they both supposed to be there, or is it one or the other?
It's funny that you caught that. My chief operator noted that this morning, so it's been changed in the report. That was a typo on my part. The correct number was 5.9, I believe. I just got to find it here.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that. I can certainly understand that it can happen, but there's a lot of documentation there, and I suspect we won't be quite as lucky next year. We'll probably have a review, maybe even 2 by MOECC. So.
That's right.
Thank you.
Be careful what you wish for. Any other questions or comments at this point? Okay. I have a resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive for information the 2019 Water System Summary Reports and the 2019 Annual Water Reports. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no indication of a report from our fire chief tonight, which brings us to item 6 on our agenda. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or our committees? Seeing no indication of that, let's move on to item 7. We have received no additional items of correspondence beyond that found in the consent agenda as per the amendment earlier to the agenda of this meeting. That brings us to agenda item 8, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. Turning to item 8.1, council is asked to enact bylaw number 22-2020, which amends the procedural bylaw for boards and committees to formalize various changes we have agreed to as council by resolution in recent meetings. Does the clerk have any comments?
Council, this bylaw is before you tonight based on a delegation that you received from the Perth Meadows Board last week and a report from Treasurer Hale, as well as a notice of motion brought forward by Mayor Kaysenberg. So just on your boards and committees procedural bylaw, the amendments are by adding under the definitions of an advisory committee, adding the new committee, the Agriculture and Agri-Technology Advisory Committee. And then moving on then to the terms of reference, the change made for the Perth Meadows Board was, as approved by Council last week, now being composed of 6 voting members, 5 being residents and 1 a North Perth Council representative. And then thirdly, the addition of the terms and references for the Agriculture and Agri-Technology Advisory Committee.
Thanks, Pat. Councillors, any questions at this point? Okay, so I have for our consideration a bylaw resolution that reads as follows, that bylaw 22-2020 being a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw for boards and committees be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Barons, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen. You're busy seconding things tonight. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing no indication of same, let's have the vote. And that is carried. And next we have item 8.2. Council is asked to enact bylaw number 23-2020, which amends Schedule P of the municipality's rates and fees bylaw to formalize the changes in the rate schedule pertaining to the Perth Meadows fees that was earlier approved by a resolution of council. Pat, any comments on this one? It's going to be Fran. Welcome, Ms. Hale.
Yes, as was presented by Chairman Lois McLaughlin of that committee, the rates, that budget included a rate increase of 2%, which is before you here this evening under bylaw.
Great. Councillors, any questions on this matter? Seeing none, I have for our consideration the following, that bylaw number 23-2020, being a bylaw to amend the rates and fees bylaw Schedule P, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover for that? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. We have thus updated the rates and fees bylaw. That brings us to agenda item number 9. Are there any notices of motion from councillors attending this evening? Seeing none, that brings us to agenda item number 10. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Clerk Bearfelds?
Inform council that we have been in receipt of an appeal to the Drainage Tribunal in regards to the Gilkinson Municipal Drain.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Treasurer Hale, did you, which number do you have?
14B.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted council to be aware that next Wednesday's budget meeting, the rescheduled one, we're going to be missing 3 members of council. And I just wanted council to be aware of that and if they wanted to make any amendments to their date or whether they wanted to proceed with that date.
Thank you, Treasurer Hale. I am among those who will be absent next Wednesday. So, councillors, what do we think? Can we move this to a date either later that week or the next week? Right. Could the 26th work for people?
I will try. I'm on my way home back from Kingston. I may be here, depending on traffic.
Anyone else have a serious conflict on the 26th?
But I'm all for, if that works, let's go for it.
Okay. So I'm not seeing anyone flagging. Okay. So it looks like the 26th seems like a consensus for council. Let's move the meeting for the 26th at this point, and we'll just keep our ear to the ground about whether others fall out, including the 2 who are absent tonight. All right, thank you. Any further announcements that reflect well on North Perth at this time that are worthy of council's attention? It was a very lovely Saturday morning in Atwood with the grand ribbon cutting for the Atwood Lions rink. Very well attended. There was lovely refreshments afterwards, good company. The sun was shining. It was a good day to beam and enjoy the consequences of a lot of community hard work. So kudos to the Lions Club of Atwood. Anyone else? You okay? I thought I saw your hand sort of tentatively go up earlier.
I wasn't just too sure what happened. Did you change the date?
Yes, to
Yes,
the
you did.
26th.
Okay, thank you.
We've changed the date to the 26th.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to agenda item 11. To my knowledge, there is there are no matters to consider in closed session this evening. Therefore, agenda item 12 is also not required for our purposes tonight. Please take note that Councillor Behrens has left the chamber at this point in time. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I have a draft for a confirmatory bylaw number 24-2020, which reads as follows. That bylaw number 24-2020 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. And the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I invite a mover, please? Councillor Anstead, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Councillors, we have completed the deliberation and taken action on the business that was put before us this evening. Before I read a motion to adjourn, is there any further business? Seeing that, I have a motion to adjourn that reads as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 7:40 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, February 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m. So that's not next week because that would be a holiday, but the week after. Moved by Councillor Duncan, seconded by Councillor Richardson. If we could trigger that vote, please. Okay. So Councillor Anstead also asks for his vote to be recorded in favor, and that is carried. This council will meet again in regular council meeting on Monday, February 24th, 2020. This meeting is adjourned.